What if I told you that one of the most glamorous luxury brands in the world was once just a tiny leather shop struggling to stay alive? And that behind the glossy campaigns, the red carpets, and the billion-dollar empire lies a story of family betrayal, scandal, murder, and brilliant strategy that no movie script could ever capture fully. Gucci isn't just a fashion label, it's a cultural phenomenon. But the road to becoming a global icon was anything but smooth. Before we dive in, if you enjoy stories that peel back the curtain on how the world's biggest brands really work, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It only takes a second, but it helps bring more hidden stories like this one to life. The Gucci story begins in Florence, Italy in 1921, when Gucci opened a small shop selling leather goods. He had worked as a porter at the Savoy Hotel in London, carrying luggage for wealthy travelers. And as he observed their clothes, their bags, their shoes, he noticed something powerful. Luxury wasn't just about functionality, it was about status. A well-crafted suitcase wasn't just a container, it was a symbol, something people flaunted as proof they belonged to an exclusive world. Gucci returned to Italy with this insight, determined to create a business that gave people the feeling of prestige they so desperately wanted. At first, Gucci's shop was modest. He sold saddles, luggage, leather accessories, crafted with traditional Italian artisanship. But then came a pivotal shift: the automobile revolution. Horses disappeared from city streets, and with them the demand for saddles. Many traditional craftsmen struggled to adapt, but Gucci pivoted quickly, expanding into handbags, shoes, and other leather goods that appealed to the modern traveler. This ability to adapt would become a recurring theme in Gucci's rise. But so would conflict, because once Gucci began to expand, his family came into play, and with them, years of rivalry and betrayal that almost destroyed the company from within. Guccio's sons, Aldo, Vasco, and Rodolfo, joined the business. Each of them wanted a piece of the empire, but they also had radically different visions. Aldo was ambitious, aggressive, and hungry to turn Gucci into a global name. Rodolfo, a former actor, was more conservative, protective of the brand's Italian roots, and Vasco, less remembered, worked quietly in the background. For a while, their combined efforts worked. Gucci opened stores in Rome, Milan, and eventually New York in 1953. The same year, Gucci died. That moment would ignite a struggle for power that would haunt the brand for decades. When Gucci first entered America, it was like a revelation. Hollywood stars and political elites fell in love with the bamboo-handled handbags, the horse-bit loafers, the green-red-green stripe inspired by saddle girths. Grace Kelly carried Gucci. Jackie Kennedy wore Gucci. Suddenly, owning Gucci wasn't just about fashion. It was about being part of an elite cultural club. The brand's logo, the iconic double G, became shorthand for wealth and taste. But success had a price. Aldo, the mastermind behind Gucci's global push, took more control, sidelining his brothers. He built stores across the United States, even launching a Gucci perfume line that became wildly profitable. But family businesses have a strange way of turning into battlefields. As Gucci grew, envy and suspicion grew even faster. Relatives accused each other of stealing, cheating, mismanaging. The courts became a second home for the Gucci clan. By the 1970s, the company was thriving outwardly but rotting inside. Aldo's own son, Paolo, rebelled against him, trying to launch his own Gucci line without permission. Lawsuits flew. Aldo himself was later convicted of tax evasion in the US and even spent a year in prison. For a brand built on prestige, it was a humiliating scandal. Customers saw glamour, but behind closed doors, the Gucci family was tearing itself apart. And then came Maurizio Gucci, Rodolfo's son. Tall, handsome, charismatic, Maurizio inherited his father's stake and gradually maneuvered his way into control of the company. But instead of uniting the family, His leadership deepened the fractures. By the 1980s, Gucci was hemorrhaging from internal wars. Worse, the brand itself was slipping. Overexpansion and licensing deals had cheapened Gucci's image. Knockoffs flooded the market. What had once been a symbol of exclusivity was becoming tacky, overexposed, even undesirable. The word Gucci no longer whispered luxury. It screamed chaos. At one point, analysts described Gucci as a dying brand. Think about that for a second. What we now see as a powerhouse of style was, not so long ago, almost irrelevant. And the reason wasn't just competition from rivals like Louis Vuitton or Hermès. It was mismanagement, ego, and short-term greed from the very people meant to protect it. But sometimes, hitting rock bottom forces transformation. And Gucci's rebirth would begin not with family loyalty, but with outside intervention. In the late 1980s, Maurizio Gucci brought in investors, eventually selling nearly half the company to Bahrain-based Investcorp. This was the first real sign that the family's grip was slipping. Soon after, Maurizio himself struggled financially, and by 1993, he sold his remaining shares. For the first time in history, Gucci no longer belonged to the Gucci family. What followed was one of the most dramatic turnarounds in fashion history. The new leadership knew that Gucci couldn't just survive. It had to reinvent itself completely. And the man chosen to lead that creative revolution was Tom Ford. Ford wasn't a household name then, but in 1994, when he became Gucci's creative director, he unleashed a vision that would shock the fashion world. Gone were the stale designs and diluted licensing products. In their place came sleek, provocative, unapologetically sexual collections that oozed confidence and danger. Ford didn't just sell clothes, he sold an attitude. The models walked like predators. The campaigns pushed boundaries. Gucci was suddenly edgy, modern, desirable again. It worked. Celebrities flocked to Gucci. The press couldn't stop writing about it. Sales skyrocketed. Within just a few years, Gucci went from near bankruptcy to one of the fastest-growing luxury brands on the planet. It was a resurrection that seemed almost impossible. And it showed something vital about the luxury business. Fashion isn't only about products. It's about storytelling. It's about creating an aura so powerful that people don't just buy shoes. They buy into an identity. But just as Gucci was regaining its crown, tragedy struck. In 1995, Maurizio Gucci was assassinated outside his Milan office. The news shocked the world. A man who had once been at the center of the Gucci empire was gunned down in broad daylight. And the killer? It turned out to be connected to none other than his ex-wife, Patrizia Reggiani, who later became infamous as the Black Widow. The scandal was straight out of a crime thriller, and for years, it haunted the Gucci name. Yet strangely, the brand itself wasn't destroyed. If anything, the notoriety added to its mystique. Gucci was now not just glamorous, but dangerous. And Tom Ford leaned into that dark allure, pushing boundaries further with campaigns that blurred the line between fashion and provocation. The Gucci strategy became clear. Luxury thrives on desire, and desire is fueled by both beauty and controversy. In a world saturated with choices, Gucci made itself unforgettable by daring to shock, to seduce, to dominate the cultural conversation. But the Tom Ford era, for all its brilliance, wouldn't last forever. And when Ford left in the mid-2000s, many wondered if Gucci could survive yet another transition. What happened next would prove that the brand's strength wasn't tied to one family or one designer, but to a deeper formula that made Gucci a phenomenon. When Tom Ford exited Gucci in 2004 after clashes with management, many critics predicted the brand would collapse again. After all, his daring vision had almost single-handedly revived Gucci. Without him, what was left? But what happened next revealed something extraordinary. Gucci had grown into more than the sum of its leaders. It had become an institution, a symbol so deeply embedded in culture that new creative directions could reshape it without destroying its core. The post-Ford years brought Frida Giannini to the forefront. Unlike Ford, who thrived on provocation and shock value, Giannini had a softer, more romantic vision. She leaned into Gucci's heritage, reviving archival prints, floral motifs, and classic silhouettes. For a time, this worked. Gucci stabilized, expanding into new markets, strengthening its handbag lines, and reinforcing its status as a staple of global luxury. But fashion is fickle. What feels fresh one year can feel tired the next. And by the early 2010s, critics accused Gucci of becoming predictable. Rivals like Louis Vuitton and Chanel seemed bolder, younger, more culturally relevant. Social media was changing the rules. Suddenly, it wasn't enough to impress fashion editors in Paris. Now you had to dominate Instagram, Twitter, and celebrity culture in real time. Gucci needed another reinvention, but this time, the stakes were different. The world had changed. Luxury was no longer about exclusivity alone. It was about influence. Enter Alessandro Michele. In 2015, he was an almost unknown designer inside Gucci, working quietly behind the scenes. When he was promoted to creative director, the industry was stunned. Few expected much. But within months, Michele unveiled a new vision that turned Gucci into a cultural force unlike anything before. Gone was the sleek sex appeal of Tom Ford. Gone was the polished romance of Frida Giannini. Michele brought in a maximalist, eclectic, almost eccentric style. Think oversized glasses, clashing prints, retro embroidery, gender-fluid silhouettes. It was vintage meets futuristic, high culture meets streetwear, elegance meets rebellion. For some, it was confusing. For others, it was revolutionary. But here, as the genius. Michele, S. Gucci, resonated perfectly with the emerging generation of luxury consumers. Millennials and Gen Z. These buyers didn't necessarily want to look perfect. They wanted to look expressive, unique, even ironic. They grew up in a world of memes, thrift shops, subcultures blending into one another. Michele gave them exactly that, but wrapped in Gucci's luxury halo. Suddenly, Gucci wasn't just a brand, it was a playground for identity. The results were explosive. Between 2015 and 2019, Gucci's sales skyrocketed, making it the fastest-growing luxury brand in the world. Celebrities like Harry Styles, Rihanna, Jared Leto, and Billie Eilish embraced Michele's vision. Instagram feeds were flooded with Gucci sneakers, Gucci belts, Gucci tracksuits. Even memes like "that Gucci belt everyone has" became part of its cultural dominance. Gucci had turned self-expression into a business model. But behind this creative explosion was also a sharp strategy. Gucci wasn't just designing eccentric clothes, it was mastering the new digital era. The brand invested heavily in social media campaigns, collaborations, and pop culture crossovers. They partnered with influencers, launched limited edition drops, and blurred the line between streetwear and high fashion. Gucci sneakers competed with Nike and Adidas in hype. Gucci hoodies were worn like streetwear trophies, yet the prices kept it firmly in luxury territory. This balancing act, being both aspirational and accessible, was genius. On one hand, Gucci maintained its ultra-luxury lines, like high-end tailoring and exclusive runway pieces. On the other, it flooded the market with entry-level luxury items like belts, sneakers, and bags that allowed younger fans to buy into the brand. This ladder of products meant Gucci could touch almost every corner of culture. And yet, even with its dominance, Gucci's story has always been about contrast. Because for every high, there comes a low. By 2020, some began to argue that Gucci's maximalist style had peaked. When everyone owns a Gucci belt, does it still feel exclusive? When Instagram is oversaturated with Gucci patterns, does the brand lose its mystique? Luxury is fragile. It thrives on scarcity, not ubiquity. And Gucci once again faced a crossroads. But if history shows anything, it's that Gucci knows how to adapt. The company has faced collapse, scandal, betrayal, even murder, and still found a way to reinvent itself. That's because Gucci isn't just selling products, it's selling myth. And myths can be reshaped endlessly. Think about it. Gucci has lived through almost every possible drama a brand can endure. Family wars, tax scandals, a CEO murdered by his ex-wife, designers clashing with executives, entire markets writing the brand off as dead. And yet, every time, Gucci found a way not just to survive, but to thrive. What does that tell us? That luxury isn't built on stability. It's built on tension, on constant reinvention, on a willingness to dance with chaos and come out stronger. If Tom Ford turned Gucci into a symbol of erotic glamour, Alessandro Michele made it a symbol of creative freedom. But underneath both was the same principle. Gucci stays alive by refusing to be boring. Because in luxury, boring is death. And the numbers prove it. By 2019, Gucci generated nearly 10 billion euros in annual revenue. It was the crown jewel of Kering, the French luxury group that owns brands like Saint Laurent and Balenciaga. Analysts noted that Gucci accounted for almost two-thirds of Kering's profits. That's staggering. One brand, born from a tiny leather shop, now fueling an empire. But Gucci's story is not just about money or fashion. It's about culture. Look around. The word Gucci itself has become slang, meaning good or cool. Rappers drop Gucci references in songs. Streetwear kids dream of Gucci sneakers. Even memes about fake Gucci products reinforce its status. Because if people bother to copy you, it means you matter. Gucci has transcended fashion. It has become language. And yet, with all this success, there's always a shadow. Luxury is cyclical. What goes up must eventually cool down. Critics have begun to ask, has Gucci's maximalism reached saturation? Can it reinvent itself again? Or will it risk another fall like in the 1980s when overexposure nearly destroyed it? This is where the deeper lesson lies. Gucci isn't just a fashion phenomenon. It's a case study in branding, resilience, and the psychology of desire. Why do people pay thousands of dollars for a handbag? Not because it holds things better, but because it holds meaning. Gucci has mastered the art of attaching meaning to objects, and that meaning shifts with each generation. For one era, it was prestige. For another, it was sex. For another, it was self-expression. The objects changed, but the desire remained. And perhaps that's why Gucci fascinates us, because it mirrors our own contradictions. We want tradition, but we also crave change. We want exclusivity, but we also want recognition. We want to stand out, but also belong. Gucci's genius has been to live inside those contradictions and make them beautiful. The question now is, what comes next? Gucci has been everything from classic to chaotic, from deadly serious to playfully ironic. But the future of fashion is uncertain. Sustainability, technology, shifting cultural values. These are the new forces reshaping luxury. Will Gucci adapt again, as it always has? Or will a new challenger steal its throne? History suggests Gucci won't go quietly. It has too much practice turning scandal into strategy, chaos into reinvention. And that may be its greatest lesson for all of us. Sometimes, the very things that seem to destroy you are the things that set you free. As Gucci stepped into the 2020s, the world around it was changing in ways that no fashion house could ignore. The pandemic hit luxury sales hard, shutting stores and silencing red carpets. Suddenly, the old rituals of luxury, exclusive runway shows, celebrity appearances, lavish boutiques, didn't hold the same power. Consumers were online more than ever, searching for authenticity, sustainability, and meaning in what they bought. Gucci, once again, had to ask itself, what now? The brand responded not by retreating, but by experimenting. It leaned further into digital storytelling, launching bold virtual campaigns, and even experimenting with NFTs and digital fashion. In 2021, Gucci released a collection for Roblox, letting users dress their avatars in Gucci gear. To some, it seemed absurd. To others, it was visionary. Because Gucci understood that the new frontier of luxury wasn't only the runway. It was the digital world where identity is fluid and fashion can exist beyond the physical. But Gucci also faced pressure from another direction. Sustainability. Luxury brands built their empires on exclusivity. But the new generation demanded responsibility. Fast fashion was being criticized for waste, and even high fashion couldn't escape scrutiny. Gucci announced plans to reduce its environmental footprint, to source more sustainable materials, and even declared itself carbon neutral. Critics debated whether these moves were enough, but the message was clear. Gucci was trying to stay ahead of cultural shifts once again. Still, no matter how many strategies a brand deploys, fashion is ultimately emotional. People don't fall in love with spreadsheets or sustainability reports. They fall in love with images, with stories, with moments. And Gucci continued to craft moments that captured the imagination. Whether it was Harry Styles wearing a dress on the cover of Vogue, or a Gucci ad blending surrealism with pop culture references, the brand kept feeding the cultural machine. But here's where the story deepens. Gucci's history reminds us that fashion is never just about clothes. It's about identity. In the 1950s, Gucci was a status symbol for the elite. In the 1990s, under Tom Ford, it became a symbol of sex and power. In the 2010s, under Alessandro Michele, it became a symbol of individuality and creative freedom. Each era of Gucci reflected the anxieties and desires of its time. That's why it matters so much. Gucci isn't telling us what to wear. It's telling us who we think we are. And that makes the Gucci story more than just a business case. It's a mirror. Because just like Gucci, we reinvent ourselves constantly. We shift identities, adapt to trends, survive scandals, embrace contradictions. Sometimes we hit rock bottom, like Gucci did in the 1980s. Sometimes we explode into brilliance, like Gucci did under Tom Ford or Alessandro Michele. The brand's resilience is really a reflection of human resilience. The ability to take chaos and turn it into something unforgettable. Of course, the scandals are impossible to ignore. Few brands can say their history includes tax fraud, family betrayal, and even assassination. The murder of Maurizio Gucci in 1995 wasn't just tabloid fodder. It was a tragedy that revealed the dark side of wealth and obsession. And yet, Gucci the brand didn't collapse. In some ways, the scandal only heightened its myth. That's a disturbing thought, but also a revealing one. Luxury thrives on drama. A perfect story doesn't captivate us. A flawed, tragic, chaotic story does. Gucci's very imperfections made it magnetic. And that may be the ultimate secret behind its phenomenon. Gucci has never been about perfection. It has been about excess, risk, reinvention. The very things that could have destroyed it became the things that defined it. The family fights drew headlines. The scandals made it notorious. The bold designs made it unforgettable. Gucci learned to turn every weakness into fuel. Today, the brand faces the same challenge it always has: staying relevant in a world that changes faster than ever. TikTok trends rise and fall in weeks. New luxury challengers like Off-White or Fear of God blur the line between high fashion and streetwear. Consumers question the value of a $2,000 bag when minimalism and sustainability are rising. Gucci's throne is never guaranteed. But then again, it never has been. That uncertainty is part of what keeps the brand alive. So what can we take away from Gucci's story? First, that survival is not about avoiding scandal. It's about using it. Gucci's darkest moments paved the way for its greatest reinventions. Second, that storytelling is as important as product. A handbag is just leather and stitching until you attach a myth to it. Gucci mastered the art of myth-making, and that's why its name alone can sell a dream. And third, that reinvention is constant. Gucci never let itself be locked into one identity. It always found a new way to speak to the moment, even if that meant shocking, confusing, or dividing people. If Gucci has taught us anything, it's this. The line between destruction and reinvention is razor thin. One wrong move can tarnish a brand, but the right move at the right moment can make it immortal. And Gucci, against all odds, has walked that line for over a century. So the next time you see the double G logo on a bag, a belt, or a pair of sneakers, remember, it isn't just fashion. It's history. It's scandal. It's survival. It's a mirror of culture itself, wrapped in leather and stitched with desire. Gucci became a phenomenon not by being perfect, but by being unforgettable. And that's the real story of how Gucci conquered the world. Don't miss more stories like this one. Hit subscribe and join us as we uncover the secrets behind the icons that shape our world.